NASA astronauts return after 9 months, but they're hiding something shocking. You won't believe what just happened. The world watched in awe as the capsule made its descent through Earth's atmosphere, flames licking its heat shield as it prepared for re-entry. Families, scientists, and reporters gathered around screens, holding their breath. It had been 9 long months since Commander Ethan Cole, Dr. Maria Vasquez, and pilot Ryan Carter left Earth for their deep space mission aboard the Orion 3. This was supposed to be a historic mission, one that would take humanity further than ever before. But something had changed. As the capsule splashed down into the ocean, recovery teams rushed forward. The hatch opened, steam billowing out, and the astronauts emerged one by one. Applause erupted from the control center, but those closest to the capsule noticed something strange. Their expressions were off, not the usual exhaustion or relief, not the overwhelming joy of coming home. Their eyes held something deeper, something unspoken. Ethan clutched the side of the capsule a second longer than needed before stepping out. Maria's fingers trembled as she removed her helmet. Ryan's jaw clenched like he was forcing a smile. But before anyone could ask, the medical team rushed in, escorting them away. Inside NASA's secure facility, the debriefing room was silent. The 3 astronauts sat across from a panel of scientists and officials, a recording device blinking red on the table. "Let's start from the beginning," a voice said. Ethan took a slow breath. The mission was going as planned, until Sol 126. The room tensed. Sol 126, day 126 of their mission. That was when communication with Orion 3 had gone dark for 26 hours. The official report blamed a solar flare, but the astronauts weren't speaking. Maria glanced at Ethan, her throat tightening. Ryan tapped his fingers against the table. No one spoke for a moment. "You lost contact," the official prompted. "Then what happened?" Ethan's hand curled into a fist. "We saw something." A chill ran through the room. "Define something," another official pressed. Ethan's gaze flickered to Maria, to Ryan. Their silence was deafening. Finally, Maria spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "There was a light." "A light?" "Not from the sun," Ryan said, his voice tight. "Not from anything we've ever seen before." The officials exchanged glances. Could it have been an anomaly? A reflection? A distant star? Ethan shook his head. It wasn't out there. It was inside. Silence. The officials leaned in. Inside, Maria's hands gripped her chair. It came through the walls, like it wasn't bound by matter. It was just there. Ryan swallowed hard, and it spoke. A shudder ran through the room. The officials remained still. Spoke? In what way? Ethan exhaled, his voice heavy. Not in words. In thoughts. In emotions. Like it knew us. Like it had been waiting for us. Maria's eyes glistened. "It showed me my daughter." Her laugh. Her little hands reaching for me. She blinked, her voice breaking. But she wasn't there. Ryan's jaw tightened. "It showed me my father. He died 10 years ago." The officials sat frozen. No one breathed. Ethan's hands trembled slightly. "It didn't just show us. It made us feel it. Like we were there. Like we never left." Maria wiped her eyes. And then it was gone. A long pause. One of the officials finally spoke. "You understand why we need to keep this classified?" Ethan nodded. "We knew before we landed." Ryan looked away. Maria pressed her lips together. "But there's something else, isn't there?" the official asked. Ethan's gaze darkened. It left something behind. Maria reached into her pocket. Her fingers trembled as she placed a small, metallic object on the table. It was smooth, black, and featureless, except for one thing. It was warm, and it was pulsing, as if it was alive. The launch pad stood beneath a darkened sky, illuminated by the towering glow of floodlights. Steam hissed from the base of the rocket as final checks echoed through the comms. Inside the crew module, Commander Ethan Cole took a deep breath, his gloved fingers tightening around a small photograph taped to the console. His wife and daughter, smiling by the ocean, a moment frozen in time. "Commander, you good?" Ryan Carter, the mission pilot, turned his head slightly, voice calm but edged with tension. Ethan exhaled. Yeah, just soaking it in. Dr. Maria Vasquez, the mission specialist, gave him a knowing look from across the cramped cockpit. It never feels real until this moment, does it? Ethan shook his head. No, it doesn't. They had spent years training for this, but nothing could prepare them for the sheer weight of the moment. The knowledge that in just minutes, they would be propelled beyond Earth's grasp into the abyss of space. Orion 3, this is Houston. Final comm check before launch. Copy, Houston. Ethan responded, steadying his voice. Comm is clear. Ryan cracked his knuckles, the only sign of his nerves. 9 months in a metal box. No gravity. No fresh air. What could go wrong? Maria shot him a glare. Really? Right now? Ethan smirked. You're the one who agreed to fly with him. A voice crackled through the headset. T-minus 30 seconds. Ethan's fingers hovered over the controls. The vibration of the rocket beneath them grew stronger, a low rumble building into a deafening roar. Maria clutched the silver chain around her neck, her lips moving in a silent prayer, a habit she never admitted to but never skipped. Ryan exhaled sharply. No turning back now. T-minus 10, 9, 8. Ethan stole one last glance at the photo. I'll see you soon, he whispered. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. The force slammed them back into their seats. A violent eruption of fire and sound as Orion 3 tore away from Earth. The acceleration was crushing, a relentless force pressing against their chests as the sky outside turned from blue to black. The world fell away. The rocket shook violently, their suits tightening to keep blood from pooling in their legs. Ethan's vision tunneled, the pressure unbearable, until suddenly silence. A strange, almost sacred quiet. They were in space. The weightlessness hit first, a surreal lightness as the restraints loosened. Ethan flexed his fingers, his body adjusting to the absence of gravity. Ryan hooped, unstrapping himself and pushing off the console, floating effortlessly. Now this never gets old. Maria shook her head. We just left the planet at 25,000 miles per hour, and you're already messing around? Ryan grinned. I live for this. Ethan ignored them, his gaze locked on the window. The Earth stretched below, an impossible, breathtaking view. A fragile blue sphere, suspended in darkness. No matter how many times he had seen it in training, nothing compared to the real thing. Maria floated beside him, her voice softer. Makes you feel small, doesn't it? Ethan nodded. Yeah. For a moment, there was peace. But nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to experience. The days aboard Orion 3 settled into routine, system checks, data collection, exercise, and endless reports back to Houston. The vast emptiness of space stretched in every direction, beautiful and terrifying. On Sol 126, something changed. Ethan was reviewing telemetry data in the cockpit when Ryan's voice cut through the comms. Commander, you might want to take a look at this. Ethan floated toward the observation window where Ryan and Maria were already staring, their faces tight with confusion. Do you see that? Maria pointed beyond the capsule, past the glimmering surface of the solar panels. At first, Ethan saw nothing but the usual void. Then a flicker, a dim, pulsing glow. Reflection, Ryan muttered. Ethan shook his head. There's nothing to reflect off of. The glow pulsed again. Faint, distant, but undeniably real. Houston's voice crackled in their earpieces. Orion 3, we're reading stable telemetry. Report status. Ethan hesitated before pressing the comm button. Houston, we're observing an unidentified light source off the starboard side. It's faint but persistent. A pause. Then static. Ethan frowned. Houston, do you copy? More static. Then finally, affirmative Orion 3. Continue with mission protocols. Likely an optical anomaly. Maria's brow furrowed. An optical anomaly? That's all they're giving us. Ryan tapped his fingers against the window. It's moving. Ethan's pulse quickened. The glow wasn't stationary. It was drifting, no, shifting, almost like it was aware of them. Then, Just as suddenly, it vanished. Ethan activated the external cameras. Nothing. Whatever it was gone. Should we log it? Maria asked. Ethan hesitated. No, not yet. Maria and Ryan exchanged glances, but neither argued. The second incident. 12 hours later, Maria was asleep when she heard it. A whisper. She jolted awake, her breath fogging up her visor. She had fallen asleep inside her suit. Standard protocol for deep space missions. The cockpit was dim, only the faint glow of control panels breaking the darkness. Then she heard it again. Not a voice, not words, just a presence. She turned her head slowly. Ethan was strapped in, asleep. Ryan was on the other side of the module, arms crossed over his chest. The whispering continued. Maria's heart pounded. "Ryan," she called softly. Ryan stirred. Do you hear that?" Ryan blinked, rubbing his face. "Hear what?" Maria held her breath. The whisper was gone. She forced a laugh. "Never mind. Just the air filters, I guess." But deep inside, she knew it wasn't. The third incident. 24 hours later, they lost contact with Houston. Static replaced mission control's steady voice, cutting off mid-sentence. Ethan ran diagnostics. Comms were fully operational. They tried every frequency. Nothing. The silence stretched. "This doesn't make sense," Maria muttered, tapping rapidly on her screen. No solar storms, no interference. The signal should be fine. Ryan floated toward the window, glancing into the void. Maybe they're ignoring us. Ethan looked up sharply. Why would they do that? Ryan didn't answer. Then, thud, the entire capsule jolted. Maria gasped, clutching the console. Ryan spun in zero gravity, eyes wide. Ethan gripped his restraints. What the hell was that? Another thud, this time from below. The air inside the capsule felt heavier, stifling. Maria's voice trembled. Something's outside. Ethan unstrapped himself, heart hammering. He floated toward the lower hatch, hands steady despite the rush of adrenaline. The capsule was sealed. There shouldn't be anything there. He hesitated, then tapped the surface. Silence. Then tap, tap, tap. From the other side. Maria covered her mouth. Ryan's eyes darted to Ethan, his voice barely a whisper. "Commander, we're not alone." The silence was unbearable. The three astronauts hovered in the dimly lit capsule, eyes locked on the hatch. The tapping had stopped, but the air inside Orion 3 felt thick, charged with something unseen. Ethan's fingers trembled slightly as he reached for the external camera feed. His training told him to remain calm. His instincts told him to run. Not that there was anywhere to go. He flicked through the external cameras. Nothing but the endless black void. No movement. No anomalies. Just silence. Then, a flicker. Ethan's pulse spiked. There. Rewind it. Maria's hands moved quickly over controls, rewinding the footage frame by frame. There, at the very edge of the screen, a shimmer in the darkness. Not a solid object, not debris, but a distortion, a ripple, as if space itself had bent for a fraction of a second. Ryan exhaled. What the hell is that? Ethan switched to infrared. The display glowed with heat signatures. Their own bodies lit up, along with the faint warmth of Orion 3. But just outside, a shape, faint, almost human. Maria recoiled. No, that's impossible. Ethan's hands were cold. It's there. The shape hovered just beyond the capsule, its outline unstable, shifting like a mirage. It wasn't solid. It wasn't floating debris. It wasn't human. Then it turned. The heat signature flickered. And suddenly it was facing them. Ryan's breath hitched. Oh, hell no. A burst of static exploded in their earpieces, deafening and raw. Their control panels flickered, screens glitching with lines of code they didn't recognize. A voice. No, a presence whispered through the comms. Not words, just knowing. Ethan clutched the console. It's in the system. Maria frantically shut down the primary link to the capsule's AI, but the interference grew stronger. The lights flickered. A deep hum resonated through the walls, vibrating through their suits. Then, everything went dark. For a full minute, nothing. No lights, no sound, no wait, just a cold, endless black. Then the systems rebooted. The first thing Ethan saw was the time log. They had lost 6 hours. Maria stared at it in horror. That's not possible. Ryan's voice was hoarse. We were awake the whole time. But the log said otherwise. They had been somewhere, but none of them could remember. The hidden recording. Maria was the first to find it. As she combed through the corrupted data, she found a single, unmarked file in the system. A video, shaky, distorted, but clearly from inside Orion 3. Her fingers hovered over the play button. She hesitated, then pressed it. The screen flickered to life. It showed them, Ethan, Maria, and Ryan floating inside the capsule. But their movements were wrong. Slow, mechanical, like they weren't in control. Ryan's voice came through, low and unnatural. Do you feel it? Maria, her video self, tilted her head in an eerily smooth motion. Her lips moved, but the voice that came through was not hers. It's inside us now. Ethan's blood turned to ice. The video continued, the static growing heavier. The 3 astronauts turned, all facing the camera at once, their expressions blank. Then, the screen cut to black. A single phrase flashed on the screen. You were never alone. Maria slammed the laptop shut, her breath ragged. No. Ryan's face was pale. That never happened. We never said that. Ethan's hands curled into fists. NASA knew. Maria turned to him. He nodded. They knew something was out here. And they sent us anyway. A sharp alarm blared through the cabin. Red warning lights flashed across the control panels, and the artificial gravity flickered. Just for a second, before stabilizing again. Maria gripped the console. What now? Ryan scanned the diagnostics, his voice tight. Oxygen levels dropping. Fast. Ethan's heart pounded. Where's the breach? Maria's fingers flew over controls. External panel, near the starboard side. If we don't fix it now, we won't have enough oxygen to make it back. Ethan's mind raced. The external panel wasn't just where the breach was. It was also where they had seen it. Silence filled the cabin. No one wanted to say it, but they were all thinking the same thing. They weren't alone. Ryan exhaled sharply. We have no choice. Suit up. The spacewalk. The airlock doors hissed as they sealed behind them. Ethan, Maria, and Ryan stepped into the void, tethered to the ship by thin lifelines. The endless black surrounded them, vast and unmoving. The only sound was their own breathing, echoing inside their helmets. The hull of Orion 3 stretched out before them, gleaming under the distant light of the sun. Just ahead, the starboard panel was scorched, like something had burned through it. Maria floated forward, her hand steady as she reached for her toolkit. Patching now. Ryan kept his eyes on the blackness beyond. Make it fast. Ethan adjusted his grip on the tether. Something about this felt wrong. Maria's hands moved with practiced precision, sealing the breach with a metallic patch. Almost done. Then the whispering returned. Ethan's breath caught. It wasn't coming through the comms this time. It was inside his suit. A voice just beneath the static. Not words. Just presence. He spun around. Ryan was gone. Ethan's body went cold. His tether was still there, but Ryan wasn't attached to it anymore. Maria turned, eyes wide. Where is he? Ethan scanned the darkness, his voice shaking. Ryan. Nothing. Just the endless, silent void. Then Maria gasped. Ryan was floating just beyond the ship, motionless. His suit lights flickered erratically. Ethan's throat tightened. Ryan, respond. No answer. Maria grabbed his arm. Something's wrong. Ethan had to act fast. He pushed off the hull, propelling himself toward Ryan. His hands trembled as he reached for him, gripping the front of the suit. Ryan's helmet tilted slightly, his visor reflecting the distant stars. Ethan's breath caught. Ryan was smiling, not in relief, not in fear. A slow, eerie smile. like he understood something they didn't. Then his voice crackled through the comms, flat and unnatural. "It's beautiful, Ethan." Ethan yanked him back toward the ship. Ryan didn't resist. He just kept smiling. The return to the ship. Back inside Orion 3, Ethan and Maria sealed the airlock, pulling Ryan inside. He was breathing. His vitals were stable. But he wouldn't answer their questions. He just sat there, staring at the wall, that strange smile still lingering on his lips. Maria whispered, "What happened out there?" Ryan blinked slowly, as if waking from a dream. His voice was distant. "We were never meant to leave." Maria shot Ethan a look, fear evident in her eyes. Ethan's stomach churned. He knew, deep down, that Ryan hadn't just drifted out there. Something had taken him. And now he was back. But he wasn't the same. The return to Earth was smooth. Too smooth. The capsule sliced through the atmosphere. Parachutes deploying perfectly, landing in the vast desert where NASA recovery teams waited. As the hatch opened, sunlight flooded in. The air was warm, familiar. They were home, but something felt wrong. Ethan stepped out first, his boots sinking into the sand. Maria followed, inhaling deeply, as if she had to convince herself the air was real. Ryan was last. He stood in the hatchway for a moment, looking up at the sky. His expression was unreadable. Then he whispered, "It's still watching." The debriefing. The 3 astronauts were immediately separated. Standard protocol. Or at least, that's what NASA told them. Ethan sat in a cold, white room, fingers tapping against a metal table. A mirror covered the far wall, but he knew someone was watching from behind it. A NASA official entered, clipboard in hand. His voice was calm, calculated. "Tell us about the anomaly." Ethan hesitated. "Which one?" The official didn't blink. "All of them." Ethan's stomach tightened. He had been in debriefings before. They asked about mechanical failures, space conditions, psychological responses. But this was different. They weren't asking for details. They were looking for confirmation, as if they already knew. Ethan's hands clenched. "You knew, didn't you?" The official remained silent. "You sent us up there knowing something was out there." Still, no answer. Instead, the official simply slid a document across the table. It was a non-disclosure agreement, a thick one. Ethan exhaled sharply. "What happens if I don't sign?" The official gave a thin smile. "You don't want to know." The missing data. Maria was the first to notice. NASA returned their flight logs, mission records, even personal footage they had recorded aboard Orion 3. But entire chunks of data were missing. There were gaps in their transmission logs, footage that had been erased, medical reports that had been altered, and the worst part? The hidden video, the one where they had spoken in that strange, unnatural way, was gone. It was as if NASA had wiped it from existence. Or worse, as if it had never been recorded at all. Ryan's disappearance. A week after their return, Ryan vanished. No press conferences, no interviews, no official statement. Just gone. NASA claimed he had chosen to retire from public life, that he wanted to be with family. But Ethan and Maria knew better. His apartment was empty, his phone disconnected, his social media wiped clean. It was like he had never existed. Then, 2 days later, Ethan found an envelope slipped under his door. No return address, no markings, just a single note inside. Ryan's handwriting. 4 words. "Don't look at them." Ethan's breath caught. His hands shook. Them. Not it. Them. The final question. Ethan and Maria never spoke about it again. Not to each other. Not to anyone. But sometimes, late at night, Ethan would wake up gasping, a cold sweat clinging to his skin. Because in his dreams, he was still up there, floating in the silent void. And something was staring back. And maybe, just maybe, it had come back with them.